Let us begin in the winter of 1849 in St. Petersburg's Semenovsky Square. A line of prisoners stands shivering in the pre-dawn gloom, their breath crystallizing in the air. Among them is Fyodor Dostoyevsky, a 28-year-old writer condemned to death for reading banned socialist literature. His hands are bound, his eyes fixed on the wooden posts ahead. Soldiers load rifles. A priest offers final rites. The drum roll begins. This is the end, he thinks. But then a hoofbeat. A messenger gallops into the square. The Tsar has mercifully commuted their sentence. Instead of death, 4 years in a Siberian labor camp, followed by exile. Dostoyevsky collapses. Later, he would write, "They did not spare my life. They hacked it to pieces." This moment, this dance with oblivion, would become the first twist in Dostoyevsky's labyrinth. For the rest of his life, he would return to that frozen square, to the question, why did they let me live? And deeper still, what does it mean to suffer? And why does it feel like both a curse and a compass? To understand Dostoyevsky's answer, we must wander deeper into his labyrinth. Picture it, a maze not of hedges, but of ice and shadow, its walls etched with the faces of gamblers, radicals, saints, and murderers. Each turn forces a choice, despair or defiance, pride or penitence. But unlike the Greek myth of Theseus, there is no minotaur at the center, only a mirror. Before Siberia, Dostoyevsky was a rising literary star, a radical dreamer enchanted by utopian ideals. But the labor camp shattered his illusions. He lived among thieves and killers, shackled ankle to ankle, breathing air thick with despair. In The House of the Dead, he recalls a prisoner who smiled while describing how he slaughtered a child. Another who shared his last crust of bread. "Men are men everywhere," he wrote, "even in hell." Here lies the first paradox. Suffering did not make Dostoyevsky bitter. It made him porous. Siberia peeled away his intellectual arrogance, forcing him to confront the raw, trembling humanity he shared with even the most monstrous souls. His novels became excavations of this truth. Raskolnikov, the murderer in Crime and Punishment, is not a villain, but a mirror, a man who rationalizes evil to feel like a Napoleon, only to collapse under the weight of his own conscience. But why must the path to redemption be so twisted? Consider the nature of a labyrinth. Its purpose is not to trap, but to transform. A straight road lets us cling to our illusions. A maze forces us to question them. Dostoyevsky's characters, the alcoholic Marmeladov, the suicidal Kirillov, the vengeful Nastasia Filipovna, are all lost in their own psychic mazes. Their suffering is not random, it is a reckoning. Imagine a climber scaling a mountain in darkness. Each slip, each cut, teaches them where not to place their hand. Pain becomes a map. For Dostoyevsky, suffering is that dark ascent, a way to strip away the lies we tell ourselves. In Siberia, he wrote, "I learned to see, not with my eyes, but with my scars. Yet there's a danger here. Suffering can also be a siren song, luring us into narcissism or nihilism." The underground man, Dostoyevsky's spiteful anti-hero, revels in his own misery like a pig in filth. "I am acutely conscious of my own degradation," he sneers, "and that is my greatest pleasure." This is suffering without purpose, a maze with no exit. But Dostoyevsky's labyrinth is not a trap. It is a crucible. To navigate it, one must hold two truths at once, that suffering is inevitable and that it is not the end. Like a prisoner scraping a tally on a cell wall, the marks of pain become a record, not of punishment, but of survival. As the candle flickers in our imaginary study, consider this. What if your own darkest moments are not dead ends, but bends in a path you cannot yet see? Dostoyevsky's twisted journey suggests that redemption is not a destination, but a way of walking. One step, then another, through the dark, and so we leave him there, in the Siberian cold, his body broken but his eyes newly open. The labyrinth has begun its work. Ahead lie epilepsy, gambling addiction, and the haunting cry of his novelistic children. But for now, The snow keeps falling, and somewhere deep in the ice a key begins to form. Yet how does a key take shape? Not by chance, but by fire. Let us step into the forge. To understand Dostoyevsky's vision of suffering, we must step into the smithy of the soul. Here, in the heat and clamor, base metals are transmuted into gold. But this is no ordinary forge. It is a place where agony becomes agency, where humiliation is hammered into humility. Take Raskolnikov, the brooding student of crime and punishment. After murdering the pawnbroker, Alyona Ivanovna, he does not flee or repent immediately. Instead, he retreats into a feverish delirium, pacing his cramped attic like a caged animal. His crime is not just against the old woman, it is against his own humanity. He sought to prove himself a superman beyond moral law, yet finds himself shackled by something far heavier than guilt, the truth of his insignificance. Dostoyevsky's genius lies in showing us Raskolnikov's unraveling, not as a punishment, but as a purification. The young nihilist, who once believed himself a Napoleon, is reduced to trembling before a simple peasant woman, Sonia, who sells her body to feed her family. In her presence, his grand theories crumble. She wears her suffering like a mantle, not a shackle. When she hands him a cross and whispers, "Go to the crossroads, bow to the earth, and kiss it," he does not see a command, but an invitation. Siberia's frozen prison, where he is eventually exiled, becomes his crucible. There, in the howling cold, his arrogance melts. He dreams of a plague that turns humanity into prophets and conquerors who destroy one another, a nightmare, reflection of his former self. Only then does he awaken to love. This is the alchemy Dostoyevsky unveils. Suffering is the flame that separates the dross from the divine. The process mirrors the medieval alchemist's nigredo, the blackening, the decay of the ego. Raskolnikov's pride cracks like ore in the fire, revealing the raw, unformed self beneath. But alchemy requires more than destruction. It demands rebirth. In the labor camp, Raskolnikov does not find answers, but a question. What if, despite everything, I am worthy of love? Dostoyevsky knew this duality intimately. During his own Siberian exile, he wrote of a moment when a fellow prisoner, a murderer, gifted him a copy of the New Testament. The man could barely read, yet he clung to the book as though it held a secret. For Dostoyevsky, this act, a killer, offering scripture, epitomized the paradox of suffering. It is both a mirror and a window. It reflects our deepest flaws, yet through its cracks, we glimpse our capacity for grace. Consider the ancient alchemical symbol of the Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail. Suffering, too, is cyclical. We return to our wounds, but with each turn, we digest them differently. Sonia embodies this. She does not transcend her pain, she integrates it. When Raskolnikov asks why she does not drown herself in the river, she replies, what would happen to them? Her starving siblings? Her suffering is not passive, it is an act of love. In this, she becomes the alchemist, transforming despair into devotion. Yet, there is a danger here. Alchemy can falter, fire can consume rather than refine. Dostoyevsky's underground man, stewing in his self-made misery, is a cautionary tale. He refuses the forge, choosing instead to find pleasure in the pain of the toothache. His suffering is sterile, a closed loop of spite. He is the unlit match, the crucible left empty. What separates Raskolnikov from the underground man? Choice. Alchemy requires participation. The blacksmith must tend the flame. In Siberia, Raskolnikov chooses to kneel, not before God, but before life itself. He embraces the burden of being, as philosopher Lev Shestov would say. His tears, when they finally come, are not of self-pity, but of awe. Her love will resurrect me, he whispers of Sonia. As the camera lingers on the molten gold, ask yourself, what in you needs to be scorched away? What dormant metal waits beneath? Dostoyevsky whispers that suffering is not the enemy of joy, but its refiner. The alchemist's fire burns, yes, but it also illuminates. And so, We leave the forge, its embers glowing like distant stars. Ahead lies the river, the choice to bend or break. But for now, let the hammer's echo fade into silence. The gold is cooling, the shape of the key grows clearer. Yet a key is useless without a hand to turn it. Let us follow the river's flow. In The Brothers Karamazov, Dmitri Karamazov, accused of a murder he did not commit, roars into the void, "I accept the torment, so that I may suffer and be purified." His brother Ivan, meanwhile, sits in a dim cafe, feverishly drafting his Rebellion, a treatise rejecting a world where children suffer. Two men, one bloodline, opposite choices. Dmitri embraces his cross. Ivan hurls his into the abyss. Here, Dostoyevsky unveils his second paradox. Suffering is inevitable, but how we meet it is a choice, and that choice defines our humanity. The river does not decide its course, but it adapts. It carves canyons through surrender, not struggle. Dmitri's acceptance is not resignation, it is an act of defiance against nihilism. Ivan's rebellion, though noble, calcifies into despair. He becomes the rocks that fracture the current. But what does it mean to choose suffering? Let us wade deeper. In Notes from Underground, the unnamed narrator, a spiteful, retired bureaucrat, confesses, "I am a sick man. I am a wicked man." He festers in self-imposed isolation, refusing a doctor's help, sabotaging friendships, luxuriating in his own degradation. His suffering is a performance, a theater of one. He chooses pain not to grow, but to prove his existence. "I will not be a piano key for others to play," he snarls. Here, suffering becomes a weapon, a way to assert control in a universe he deems absurd. Contrast this with Sonia Marmeladov in Crime and Punishment, a teenage girl forced into prostitution to feed her family. She kneels in her yellow, shameful shawl and reads Raskolnikov the story of Lazarus. "And Jesus wept," she whispers. Sonia does not choose her suffering, but she chooses its meaning. When Raskolnikov mocks her faith, she replies, "What would I be without God?" Her tears, unlike the underground man's, are not self-referential. They are a bridge. She transforms her agony into empathy, her humiliation into humility. Dostoyevsky asks, is suffering a prison or a pilgrimage? The answer lies not in the pain itself, but in the posture we assume. The underground man curls inward, a clenched fist. Sonia opens outward, a cupped palm. Consider the tree on the riverbank. Its roots grip the rock, defiant, yet its branches yield to the wind. Dostoyevsky, during his Siberian exile, wrote of a moment when a fellow prisoner, a man who had slit his lover's throat, sang a folk hymn so beautifully that the camp fell silent. It was as if we all understood, he recalled, that joy and sorrow drink from the same cup. The murderer chose, in that moment, to channel his anguish into song, not to erase his guilt, but to acknowledge it. This is the fulcrum of Dostoyevsky's philosophy. Redemption begins when we stop asking, "Why am I suffering?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming?" Dmitri's dream in prison of a starving babe, its mother's tears frozen on its cheeks, awakens him to a love wider than his own disgrace. "Let me suffer for them all," he prays. His choice transmutes his cell from a pit into a sanctuary. Yet Ivan's refusal to accept a world with innocent suffering is not villainous. It is achingly human. His famous parable of the child weeping, in the dark with its fist pressed to its heart, is Dostoyevsky's challenge to us. Can we love life even when it is unanswerable? Ivan cannot, and so he unravels. His logic is flawless, his heart broken. The river, too, holds this tension. It cannot avoid the rocks, but it can shape them. Over centuries, the water's persistence turned stone into sand. Dostoyevsky's characters teach us that suffering, when met with conscious choice, is not a storm to outrun, but a soil to till. Even the underground man in his final pages pleads, "I have only carried to an extreme what others have not dared to carry halfway." His spite is a distorted cry for meaning, a recognition that to choose numbness is also a choice. As the camera follows the river's split, one channel raging, the other flowing smooth, ask yourself, where have you been the rock and where the reed? Dostoyevsky offers no easy answers, only the reminder that the map of redemption is drawn in daily acts of courage. To bend is not to break, it is to make room for the current. We leave the river now, its waters churning toward an unseen horizon. Ahead lies the mosaic, the shattered pieces awaiting their whole, but for this moment, let the current carry you. Even the deepest rage softens in time into grace. Yet a single shard tells only part of the story. Let us gather the fragments. Prince Lev Mishkin, the idiot, returns to Russia after years in a Swiss sanatorium. His epilepsy marks him as a fool in society's eyes, yet he sees what others cannot. When the tormented beauty Nastasia Filipovna flings a bundle of rubles into the fireplace, daring men to retrieve them, Mishkin alone steps forward, not for the money but to extinguish the flames consuming her. You are in agony, he says, and you want to burn the world to match. Dostoyevsky's mosaic begins here, in the recognition that pain, when shared, loses its jagged edge. Mishkin's vulnerability, his seizures, his naivety, becomes a lens through which others glimpse their own fractured humanity. Rogozhin, the jealous lover who nearly stabs him, ends up cradling Mishkin in the darkness, their foreheads touching like broken halves of a single soul. We are both shipwrecked, Rogozhin murmurs. But how does shattered glass become a window? Consider the Russian concept of sobornost, a spiritual unity forged not by uniformity, but by the communion of free, suffering hearts. Alyosha Karamazov embodies this. After his mentor, Father Zosima, dies in scandal, Alyosha does not retreat into doubt. Instead, he kisses the earth, vowing to love life regardless of logic. His sorrow becomes a bridge. When the schoolboys, Kolya and Ilyusha, hurl stones at one another, Alyosha does not preach. He kneels, gathers their sharp words and sharper, grief and whisper. Let's remember this moment. Here, together, we are alive. Dostoyevsky, in a letter to his brother, wrote, "To love someone means to see them as God intended. Shared suffering is the chisel that chips away our illusions, revealing the divine beneath the damage." Sonia Marmeladov, the prostitute saint, knows this. Her nightly prayers beside Raskolnikov are not for salvation, but for solidarity. We are both sinners, she says, threading her fingers through his. Her shame becomes a sanctuary, yet the mosaic is fragile. In Demons, the revolutionary Pyotr Verkovensky weaponizes collective pain, turning it into a cult of destruction. "We will tear it all down," he shrieks. But his vision has no center, only edges. Dostoyevsky warns us, without love, shared suffering curdles into chaos. Contrast this with the peasant women who visit Mishkin, clutching icons and stories of dead children. They do not ask for answers, they ask for witness. "Sit with us, Prince," they say. Grief shared is grief halved. In their presence, Mishkin's idiocy transforms into wisdom. He understands what the philosopher Martin Buber called the I-thou, a relationship where suffering is not a problem to solve, but a presence to hold. The mosaic's beauty lies in its incompleteness. Each shard, a widow's tear, a drunkard's laugh, a child's coffin, retains its sharpness. Yet together they refract light into patterns too vast for any one life to contain. When Alyosha tells the boys, "You must know that there is nothing higher than to forgive another," he is speaking not of absolution, but of alignment. To forgive is to place your shard into the collective mosaic, trusting that somewhere it will catch the light for another. As the camera drifts over the mosaic, consider the Japanese art of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold. The cracks are not hidden, they are gilded. Dostoyevsky's world is one of spiritual kintsugi. Our wounds, when exposed to the air of empathy, become the very veins through which grace flows. But what of the shards that refuse to fit? The underground man, Nastasia, Svidrigailov, they linger at the edges, their pain too corrosive to touch. Dostoyevsky does not abandon them. They are the shadow that gives the mosaic depth, the dissonance that makes the harmony ache. As the stars shimmer in the broken glass, ask yourself which of your cracks might let in another's light. For in the end, the mosaic is not a static masterpiece. It is a living, breathing thing, a testament that we are, as the Zulu proverb says, people through other people. We leave the mosaic now, its edges still spreading. Ahead lies the dawn, but let the fragments linger in your mind. Even the smallest splinter holds a universe. Croatia, close your eyes. The stars are waking. In the final pages of the brothers Karamazov, Alyosha Karamazov stands at the grave of Ilyusha, a boy whose short life was a tapestry of bullying, illness, and undeserved love. The mourners, a band of schoolboys, a grieving father, a monk, are silent until Alyosha raises his voice. Let us never forget one another, and let us vow to love life, always, no matter what logic tells us. The boys erupt into cheers, clutching hands, their tears glinting in the twilight. It is not a resolution, but a reckoning. Dostoyevsky's answer to suffering culminates here, not in transcendence, but in participation. The dawn does not erase the night, it is born from it. Alyosha's unfathomable love is not naive, it is a defiance. He has seen the abyss, his mentor's corpse decaying, his father's murder, Ivan's mental collapse. Yet he chooses to kneel in the mud and kiss the earth. Water the soil with your tears, Father Zosima advised him. Your grief will grow into gladness. But how does one water despair and harvest joy? Dostoyevsky, writing these lines, knew the taste of salt and soil. His own infant son, Alyosha, had died months earlier. I will go to the boy's grave, he wrote to a friend, and weep there. Perhaps the tears will unlock something. In the novel, Alyosha's vow at Ilyusha's grave is both eulogy and baptism, a promise that memory, not misery, will have the final word. The dawn Dostoyevsky offers is not a clean slate, but a continuation. Consider the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, beauty in impermanence, in the cracked and weathered. The sunrise does not judge the night, it transforms it. Ivan's unanswered questions, Dmitri's chains, even Svidrigailov's suicide, these are not erased by the light. They are held within it, like fossils in amber. Dostoyevsky's final novel ends mid-breath. Will Dmitri escape Siberia? Will Alyosha keep his vow? We do not know. But the lack of closure is the point. Redemption is not a trophy earned, it is a rhythm sustained. The writer, who once stood before a firing squad, spent his last years racing against debt and deadlines. Yet, he scribbled in the margins of Karamazov, happiness does not lie in happiness, but in the achieving of it. The camera drinks in the sunrise. Notice how the light reveals what the dark concealed, not as flaws, but as the forest's scars. The lightning-struck oak, the wilted ferns, are gilded now. Dostoyevsky's genius was to see that suffering, like dawn, is not a private ordeal, but a communal becoming. The same light that touches Alyosha's face also warms Raskolnikov's prison yard, Sonia's shawl, and the underground man's damp cellar. Yet there is a caution here. Dawns can be false. In The Idiot, Prince Mishkin's epiphany under the Swiss mountains, all is well, cracks under the weight of human complexity. His innocence, once luminous, shatters like a stained glass saint. But Dostoyevsky does not discard the fragments. Even broken, they catch the light differently. As the first birdsong pierces the silence, ask yourself, what if your darkest night is not a void, but a womb? The philosopher Kierkegaard wrote, life can only be understood backward, but it must be lived forward. Dostoyevsky adds, to live forward, we must first kneel backward to honor the shadows that shaped us. We return now to that frostbitten square in 1849. The writer lived, but the boy he once was died there. From that grave, Dostoyevsky rose, not as a saint, but as a scribe of scars. His stories teach us that redemption is not the absence of pain, but the presence of meaning wrested from its jaws. As the sun climbs, the forest exhales, mists dissolve. Somewhere a candle flickers out, but its smoke curls upward, a fragile helix against the dawn. Dostoyevsky's last words whispered to his children were, "Love life as I have loved it, in its eternal mystery." So let us end, as Alyosha began, with a toast to the nights that hollowed us, to the cracks that let in the light, to the dawns we did not earn but chose to meet. Sleep now. The labyrinth has brought you here. The key is in your hand.